All right. Hi guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on your time zone, and welcome to your last week of our admin training session. I hope you have a better idea of what is Salesforce and what are the things we have in the Salesforce, what admin usually used to do, things like that. And before we proceed further for the day, do you guys have any questions? Okay. So far you are comfortable and you don't have any blockers or issues.
For last 2 days, we don't have assignments, so I didn't do any hands.
Okay, actually apologies for that. I about to send it. I'll be sending everything by today.
Sure, thank you.
And any other questions, guys? Any on any other topics that we have discussed? Okay, okay, all right. So last week we've seen we started with automation tools. We've seen what is workflow rule and when it will fire, what is the process builder, how it will fire, what differences of workflow and a process builder in terms of UI and things like that we've seen right last week. So today, as I said, process builder and workflow are outdated. Process builder Salesforce soon will deprecate it. That is something that's in their Salesforce roadmap. So we will today we will going to see completely on flows and what type of flows and why Salesforce flows are powerful and why Salesforce is promoting flows comparing with each and every other tools. So things like that. Okay. So we'll focus more on flows today and I'll make sure I'll be sending the all assignments till now whatever we have by end of our session. So by end of my day. All right. So before I proceed on the flows, do you guys heard anything about flows previously, or this is the first time? Okay, as usual, silence. Okay,
I heard early in RPA while working there,
okay,
we just used the flow diagrams to build the
okay.
um, like whatever the essential is needed for the uh, tool.
So,
I mean, whatever needed for the automation, we used to build the flows.
okay.
Yeah.
One of you, yeah, yeah, at least one of you had an hands-on on it. Okay, so similar like the flow process builder and workflows, flows also the same. Um, the main use of the flows is what we talked about workflows, we talked about process builder. When workflow or process builder will fired is whenever some data manipulation is happening, right? Whenever you are changing the record, you are creating a record, you are updating a record, at the time you are manipulating the data, then only the automation tools will fire, either workflow process builder flows, everything will relate to the data only completely. Okay, so I want to do some actions on record save or some actions I want to prevent something on the user save, kind of a validation rule we've seen. Similar like the same way flows, same like workflow process builder flows is also just a bit advanced of it, where it has complete rich UI. However, we are seeing the our screens, account screens or whatever the Salesforce screen we are seeing, it's completely the same rich UI look and feel, and it has a capability of handling bulk records, and there is something called trigger in a Salesforce developer aspect. There's something called trigger. Triggers are most powerful one of the tool in the Salesforce for to deal with the data. Trigger is also the same. Will It's like kind of a workflow or process builder and a flow. Whatever these three can do, trigger can also do the same. Trigger is completely a developer tool where we have to write some coding for it. Okay, so trigger is the one of the powerful tool when it comes to the development training. I think that's where we will be learning the triggers. Just to give a brief, a trigger will handle a bulk records. Millions of records also can trigger can able to handle it. But whereas workflow and process builder couldn't able to handle many records, even 1 million records also couldn't able to handle it. So even flows, a bit version of it, the flows also can able to handle up to the certain limit, where trigger can handle any number of records. So that's why, as trigger can do anything, trigger is, as I said, is a bit powerful tool where we can achieve anything from the trigger. So if I want to send 1,000 emails after a record is created, we can send it. If I want to call some other integration, some other, let's say I want to send some notification to Google or Facebook or Instagram. So if I would like to communicate with any of the third party, we can do from trigger. Things like this. We can create any object records. We can update any object records. There is nothing dependency required. Previously workflow, we can only do in the same object or master detail. Process builder, you can create any records and you can update same records. So things like that. Trigger can able to do anything. It can process millions of records. It can handle millions of data. Completely, a trigger is already a built-in application, a built-in, I would say, a concept from long years. So workflow process builder recently came into the picture. Flows are available previously called visual flows. Now Salesforce that changed it to the lightning flows. Lightning flows came into the picture after 2000, in earlier days of 2016, where lightning becomes more popular. Okay, apart from theory, how we will be creating flows and what are the types of flows we have, we'll see for it. So we have okay, before that we'll just see how we have flows. Flows, you can type here flows simply in the quick find. So everything will falls under the process automation. So we can click on here. All right, so these are things I did not create anything. These are just available by default now when I created an org. So just ignore this. To create a flow, we have to click on new flow from here. All right, don't bother about all these types of flow. We are not going to discuss everything. It will become overwhelming to you guys, so we are going to discuss few from this list. Okay, and if I categorize these, we have how many? Two, five. Yeah, five. If I categorize these five into different types, I would say we have a two types of flows. If I categorize by what type of it can do. Okay, one, this particular thing, whatever we am looking at here, is called screen flow. Okay, second thing is, I would say, invocable flow, or you can also call it as there's something other name called not the auto launcher, but yeah, maybe I would say invocable flow. There is some name. I'll come to that. So based on the action, what type of this flow can do, I just categorize in two types. So out of these five, this is screen flow. Screen flow is nothing but, so I'll go to my application, sales rep. Okay, so let's say here I'm looking at some UI, right? These details, this related list, these pages, everything. These are everything were built in Salesforce standard components. Okay, if I want to add some custom UI to this, I want to add some additional information to my account record here. Okay, I want to say, hey, hello, welcome to this account, something like that. So I want to add some additional information here. So we will be using, we couldn't able to achieve everything with the standard components. So we have to build that with some custom components. So for custom built UI, we have some different type of tools that I have in the Salesforce. Like one recent emerging tool is LWC, that is Lightning Web Component, or we can build using Lightning Component, that's Aura. Third latest outdated is Visual Force. So if I categorize custom UI, this is based on the years. So first Visual Force. This is the first time whatever we have with the Salesforce. This has been present in the. I think I spelled it wrong. Okay. Then we have something called Aura or Lightning Component. This is came into the 2014 earlier. Visual Force is from 19, I would say earlier of 2000. Still it is available earlier, Visual Force. Still we are using it even though it's outdated. Outdated in the sense no one is using it because of, and Salesforce also not supporting this because of many complications and everything. So and it doesn't provide rich UI. And Aura and Lightning Component is something which is a powerful after the Visual Force, which will give a rich UI and faster, and Lightning faster. And then LWC came into the picture of after 2016 to 17 period. 17. So this is the powerful, one of the powerful development tool in development aspect, and in admin aspect. Flows are the one of the powerful tool. So however we used to build to give a just brief overview, we used to build some custom UI in the LWC or these many tools. So whereas these required, if I want to build some custom UI, just a few form. Okay, let's say input field, and I want to render a message, hey, this is your name, something like that, just a simple form. For that I want to recruit a developer to do that either in LWC or Aura. But if I know the flow, I could able to achieve with just an admin will definitely knows the flow. So with admin knowledge itself, I could able to achieve all these small problems. So that's why Salesforce is introduced something called screen flow in the flows. Okay, I'll just show you how to create it. So out of these five, we have to select the screen flow that's automatically selected. Click on that and click create. So this is how a screen flow looks like. This is like a flow builder. This particular page we'll be calling it as flow builder. And like the flow diagram, how we used to have a typical flow diagram, right? That's how the parts and everything will looks like. So this is just a start of the flow, this is the end of the flow. I can do many actions in between these. Okay, all right. So here we have a few variables and everything here. Don't matter on this, I will see it. So let's say I want to add some just in input field, and I want to render that input field below that. Okay, I want to add just a button and a just input field, and let's use the type something there. Okay, so for that, whatever I want to render, that something will be calling it as this UI. Let's say I have an input field here, right? Let's say that I have a subject and I have a something called buttons. So these we will be calling it as screens in the flow. Each and every UI, whatever we are building, that should be built with screens. Okay, so further we have to click on screen here. So how my screen is going to look like, I can design everything, I can customize everything here. So first, let's say, as I said, every configuration, everything will have a two label and AP name. So this I would just say screen one. Okay, you can provide a description. So this is to render header and footers. So this we'll talk about later. Okay, so this is where this particular, this place we are going to, end user is going to see the screen, end user is going to look at the screen. Okay, so if I want to do some customizations, I can do here. Let's say we are going to build some form. Okay, I want to build some form like first name, last name. Okay, salutation, and what else? Date of birth, address. What else? Any other field? Maybe gender. We can have checkbox. Okay, let's say I have these type of fields. I want to build a form, and I want to render that form in the maybe a home page of it. I don't have any home page here. uh, let's say, let's go to sales. So I want to render a form here where I can simply create a record from here. Okay, for that I want to build the form, right? So I'll show you what we will be doing here. Okay, so we need first name, last name. So has anyone noticed the respective data types we've seen in the last couple of weeks session? So last but 1 week we've seen the data types, right? Salesforce data types. So let me open the object. Maybe account. I'll show you the account. So if you see something called account name, okay, when I try to create a new account record, maybe not the account, let's say I would say contact. So I have something called name here, a contact name, salutation, first name, last name. Let me go to the same contact. uh, okay, if you see something called name, contact name, which is, here we go, the name field, we have something called name. And if you see, if you look at this column, this is a data type column. It has something called name data type. As you observed while creating the custom fields before last 2 weeks, did you observe anything called data type name available while creating a custom field? If I click on new field here, so there is something called if I search with the name, there's nothing available with the data type called name. So contact every field, whatever we have is something called its name, is we will be something called as compound field. Name is a compound field, which is compound field is nothing but it's a combination of first name, last name, and there is also something called salutation, title. Okay, I think title will be next. So there are around 3 to 4 fields which fall under this compound field. You just don't need to, we couldn't able to create a custom field called name data type. That is one thing. And this is only standard available. Okay, so with the same we could, if as long as we couldn't able to achieve with the custom field, but we can all, we can achieve the same thing with flows. If you see, these are all the input 37. This left hand side we will be calling it as standard components. Whatever we have, everything will be called as standard components here, which are the standard Salesforce data types. And along with that, it also has some custom data types as well. So uh, in here, type name. I have something called name. Drag and drop this to the screen. Okay, let me drag and drop again. Okay, so this has, see, I just drag and drop name. It has came across with the first name and last name. You can also provide whatever the fields it can be rendered here. Let's say um, yeah, fields to display. There's something called fields to display, right? So if I want to render, if you hover on here, it will have all the fields that are supporting. If I want to render middle name, last name, suffix, salutation, everything, you just need to provide the respective comma separated field. That's it. It will be automatically, excuse me, excuse me, yeah, sorry, it will be rendered here. If I want to render salutation, so just see the what is the salutation spelling and add it. So salutation should be first, right? So I would say salutation, T-A-T-I-O-N. Salutation should be rendered. So this is the power of screen flow, where you just need to drag and drop the things and you could be able to achieve things. Okay, this is the name field simply. Now I want to do what else we fields we discussed. Name, date of birth. So date of birth I have to check for date field. So if I want to have date of birth with the date and time, you can drag and drop date and time, or you can simply drag and drop date. So click on that here, long press it and drag and drop here. So I would say I'll give this name to the date of birth. Okay, then this name, whatever, I did not give the name here, so this is name field, just standard name field. Label API name, it's as your wish, you can provide anything guys. Then what we discuss, another thing is date of birth, address, gender. So okay, address, so address also is another compound field. So Salesforce will give us ability, that is also some custom, we couldn't able to create custom field, the address compound field. So it is also the one of the compound field that Salesforce inbuilt provided. Okay, so address will contains city, state, country, what else, postal code, maybe I can add street. Okay, these everything will be available by default in under this field. So it will be, we couldn't able to create the custom field, and we could able to, Salesforce will be available, provide us a solution in the flow, where we could able to drag and drop this. So if I go to my flow builder, I can simply type address here. So drag and drop address here. See, it provides me the complete address. If I want to do the same customization in my code, I have to create each and every separate field: street field, city field, state field, country field, postal code field. Okay. So now I have to if I just want to finish it off here, I have added a name field, date of birth, and address field. Now I would like to change this finish button to, I just add this field as address. Okay. And if you would like to have a country as a pick list, you can provide country pick list options here. Okay. And if you would like to have any some default value, you can also provide here. Then I want to render these buttons. So instead of a footer button, next button, and I don't want to have a previous button. Okay. So I would like to hide that, because I'm going to have only one screen. If you are going to build multiple screens, what you can do is, you can simply build multiple screens and have like a wizard screen. Okay, we'll also show that kind of a wizard screen you can build it. So hide previous, and pass button, hide pass button, I don't need the pass button. And finish button, I would like to have a custom finish. Maybe I would say save, something like that. Okay, done. That's it. I built a flow, I built a screen where user could able to provide some basic details, and I want to render that in my home page. For that, before I would like to proceed, I have to save this flow first. So click on save, give us some naming. Maybe I would say contact creation. I would like to create a contact with this. Okay, have a form to create a contact record. Click on save. Then every automation tool will have something called active, deactive or reactive. Okay, so we have to activate it and we have to deactivate it. Based on that, if it's in deactive mode, we couldn't able to view the changes. If you would like to have this, it has to be inactive. Before that, there is something called run and debug. These two will help us to understand how this looks like. Okay, let's click on run. Why it's been spinning first long? Okay, see, this is how my screen looks like. So name field, I have a name and everything. I can populate my name, first name, last name, and suffix. I can provide suffix. Date of birth, I can choose some date here, address, and everything, right? So this is how my end this going to look like. Then there is something called debug. Debug will help us to understand. Let's say we have only one screen. If I added multiple, like let's say 10 screens, and I have so many other uh, ifs and all the for loops, it is going to be a bit complicated. So we couldn't able to understand how it's going to run and everything. For that, we can also debug the same record here, and we can see what's going to happen in that particular record. So this will help us to debug the flow. It will show us like how this is going. Let me show you this. So it has how this debug would like to do. Just click on run it. So if I populate everything here, first name, test name, populate date of birth something, and street, test street. So that's it. If you see, if you look at this right hand side, everything whatever I have populated the information, let's say uh here we go. I have populated first name as test name. Okay, and I have populated Saturdays as Mr. and I did not choose anything. So these values will be listed here, whatever I have chosen. So it is with this information we can track, okay, how it's going to happen. So if you see the address, I have populated only the test street address as test street. So city, country, so what's been happening behind the scene, that particular thing we could able to identify from this debug. Debug actually introduced in the last 2 years. Previously there is no debug option. This helps as a developer or as an admin to identify what's been happening, because clients used to complain that I'm not this particular record is not saving it, this particular record is not working it, how could I do that. So we couldn't able to we couldn't able to ask them to reproduce, because they also don't know how to what to reproduce and how to reproduce. At the times it will help us to identify what's been happening with the particular records, and whether the flow is working properly for each and every record type. Things like that we can easily debug from it. Okay, so without wasting time, I'll just need to activate this. Click on activate. Now as we mentioned, I would like to have this particular screen in this my home page. So as I said earlier, every page in the Salesforce can be customized. Okay, so if I want to have this my flow here, we can simply click, go to the gear icon, click on gear icon or setup icon, click on this something called edit page. This edit page is something called, we used to call as app builder or page builder, lightning record page builder. So we can see whatever I would like to see, we can just completely customize everything here. So if you see here, I don't want to have this assistant. Okay, simply click on delete, you can add something else here. So if these are the something called reports, we will be seeing in the next sessions. So this is everything. We have some standard components here. If you would like to drag and drop some standard component, let's say I want to see today's events, today's tasks, simply click on this, drag and drop here, so that will be rendered here. Okay, and just simply play around this app builder, you will easily understand what's been there. All right, so now if I would like to see, I don't want to have this here, click on delete. I would like to see my flow here, right? For that, flow is a standard component, so click on the flow, drag and drop here. So this will contain all the list of flows that are under this my org. So I want to select my own flow from this list. So if you see here, there are a number of flows, whatever the in the org, it will be automatically comes across here. So my R flow is content creation, right? Click on that, that's it. How would you like to render this? As long as it's in a one column, you will be rendered, it will be rendered here. So click on save. So I did not, till now I did not activate it. So this activation, in the sense, this is something how my org is look like. So this page, should I activate this page for the org default or not? Though that's the activation. So click on activate. So if you see here, there's something called as an as org default, as an as app default, app on profile. So you can define how this org, this home page would like to have it. So I would say as an as org default. So for this profile, this is the system default is the default layout. So this is going to replace it with this homepage default. That's it. My page is activated now. Go back to the home page, exit from the app builder. See my flow, my form, whatever the form I have built is visible here now, right? So this is how flow works. Okay, one second guys. All right, so if you see here, everything we just did drag and drop, we did not create any of it. Just within a fraction of minutes, we just drag and drop everything, and we are rendering the UI. So if I would like to have this first name, last name, everything, you can choose your own information, and you can populate required information. Okay, now what I'll be doing is we'll do this with the, let's say I want to separate information details and address details separately. Okay, so I would like to have this as like a kind of a widget screen. So we'll build that. So go back to your flow builder. So what I'm saying is, if I want to have like first only name, salutation, first name, last name, user information like personal information I would like to gather in one screen, address information I would like to gather in another screen. I don't want to, if you see here I have a long form. So when I see this I felt like, okay, these many fields I would like to I have to fill it. So that would give some kind of a bad impression while looking at the form. That's why I would like to break it up. Okay, so before I go with this, any questions on so far whatever we've seen, guys, from anyone? Okay, so silence can consider, you don't have anything, but yeah. So I would like to add a new screen, right? So for that you couldn't able to directly add here, which is an active version. Okay, for that I have to save this as, so it will create, as I said in the process builder. If you see here, this is the my first version 1. Now I want to create this as a version 2. So click on save as. So we have to create a new version and do the changes. Otherwise, for active version, whatever the changes you made it, it will not reflect it. So you have to create a new version and you have to uh, you have to clone it and you have to reactivate the latest version. Okay, so always have a description for each and every version you made the changes. You don't need to change the label. If you'd like to have, you can also change it. Description, adding second screen. Okay, I clone a new version. If I would like to see my flow builder, click on flows. So content creation, this is the flow. I click on just view all details and versions. So from this list you can see, so this is the my flow. First version I have created it, so which is an active version. I created another version which is still inactive because I did not activate it. So until you want to you want to add some changes and you don't want to deactivate the older one, you can keep in inactive and make changes until you complete the changes. The older version can be inactive. So with this it will help us in so many places, like whether if client has some issues or he couldn't able to proceed or latest version has some problems, what we can do is simply deactivate the older version and reactivate the previous version and fix the problem and again do some activation changes. Okay, so with this versioning it will help us to track back whatever the changes we did, and we can also put back the older version if there any error comes in. All right, so this is the contact creation screen. So now let me go back to my flow editor, flow builder. So as I said, I want to add another screen, right? Before that, I don't want to have the address here, as I mentioned, right? So let me remove this address from here, delete it. So I'm having only name, date of birth here. Click then. So if I want to have, if you see here, look at this, it is under content creation, right? That's perfect. Click on done. Then I want to add another screen. that is called uh, address information. How my label as address information. Okay, so drag and drop address here. What else we can render if you'd like to have any other? So everything will be the same, like each and every has its own data type. So yeah, so mostly everything doesn't have a proper uh, not, everything can be straightforward. We can directly simply select on those. So if I would say file upload, I think I'll show you in the after the file upload. Okay, fine. So this is the configuration of address information. Okay, now I have to like add this previous finish again, the same structure. I don't want to have this pass button. You can simply hide it. Finish button says save. What I'm going to do is, whatever the user entered here information, with this information I want to create a contact record in the Salesforce. Okay, so that's why I'm changing this to save. And let's say I would like to have previous, because without previous my client customer couldn't able to go back to the previous screen. Okay, and previous, what else we have? Pass, I would like to hide this pass. That's it. Click on done. Okay, address I did not provide the name, so name is required field. Okay, click on done. So now let's come back to the screen and just do this. Instead of save to, I would say standard label as, it will be automatically comes empty here. No worries. So this will be first screen. I have a name and date of birth, and second screen I have something called address information. Now with this information I want to create a contact record in the Salesforce. Make a habit of saving all the information whatever you did, so if system shutdowns or anything happen, you will not lose your data. Then click on here, scroll down. If you scroll down here, okay, click on here, scroll down here, there's something called this logic will help us to, if I want to add some if condition. Okay, so we can add this if logics, assignment, decision, loop. So everything we'll see in the while with the next type. So there is something called create records. So this is something called data, which is related to the data manipulation. If you would like to create records from here, we can create it. Update records. If you would like to get some records, if you would like to delete, roll back, everything. So these all comes under the data manipulations, right? So these records, with these actions, we can create some record and we can make some changes in the data. So I would like to create a contact record, right? Then click on create records. So I'm creating contact, create contact. Okay, then how many records I'm going to create? I'm going to create only one record. If you would like to create multiple records, you can select that. So for now I'm going to create only one record. So how are you going to create this record? So use all values from a record. This is something when you are dealing with uh, this is not for the screen flow. So use separate resource and literal values. This is how we have to choose the while we are dealing with the screen flow, because each and every field, each and every information, either it's a personal information or address information, everything is stored under the separate resources. That's why we have to choose this. If you're dealing with some kind of, like yesterday we've seen with the process builder last week, so process builder will deal with whatever record triggered, that will be comes into that particular record. So we will be choosing with auto record triggers. So we'll deal with the next session then. All right, which record, which object I'm going to create it. So this will provide us the list of objects in the Salesforce. Choose contact. Okay, then so this is a field mapping. So how to create a contact record from here? Let's say if I see my screen here, if you see here, contact has name field and salutation, everything will be in the standard fields. So all those information are Salesforce is taking care of to store in the standard field. But here, whatever the form I built is not a standard form. I'm using a custom form where I built my own custom UI. So I want to map the values to which value user entered will be mapped to the which value that I have to enter. Okay, so that's what this field mapping help us. Okay, so first let's come with the flow. What are the fields we have? We have first name, last name, right? So select. Another thing, we shouldn't have something called name field in the fields, because as I mentioned, name is a compound field. You couldn't able to directly make changes in the name field. So for name, if I go back to my contact object manager, so there's something called contact. So if you see something called name here, along with that there's something called first name. Okay, why don't have first name, last name? I think it's not showing here. Yeah, so this is not showing up here, but behind the scene this name field we couldn't able to make change directly change in the name field. So Salesforce has, we have to create in separate fields. So that's why Salesforce will it is only Salesforce field where it is only for reading purpose, not writing purpose. For writing we have to write in separate fields. So first name it has separate field, last name it has separate field, salutation has separate field. But Salesforce, while rendering the data, Salesforce will show in single field. Maybe I'll show you for one simple record that will give you information. So if I look at these details, this is simply rendering as a name scholar student one. If I would like to change this, it will convert it back to the different fields: salutation, first name, last name. So these are fit into the, if I populate with Mr. Save, this is a kind of a, you can even call it as a kind of a formula field. Okay, where Salesforce will take care of combining everything into a single field. To store these values, you have to store in separate fields. So that's why I have to choose first name, last name separately. Click on first name, and first name where I have the first name. So if I click on here, this value, this has several categories: this global constants and screen components and global variables. So we have to choose the name field in the screen element. So name is a screen component. So this, click on that, or you can select this here as well. Click on that. That will provide you the list of fields that component is holding. So if I simply drag and drop the name field that has these many attributes, so this first name will have whatever the user provided. In label will have user provided, last name, middle name, everything will have respective fields. Okay, click on first name. That's it. So it will, this first name, whatever I have entered in the screen will be mapped to the first name. Same thing with other fields, last name. So it is available in the name, then last name. Then I would like to see with the date of birth. So click on date of birth, birth date. So choose date of birth. So date of birth is a single field. That's why it is directly having here. So just select that. Okay. Then address fields. Same like name field, address fields also the compound field. It will be stored into different fields, but when it reading purpose, Salesforce will be rendered in a completely in a single field. You see here address, if I type simply address, why don't have address here? Sorry, yeah, address will not be the field. Yeah, as I mentioned, let me go to the sales contact. If I type here address, there is two different type of address: mailing address, other address. If I click on edit of this, it has, this is the label of the field. Salesforce behind the scenes stores the street into this particular mailing street. So what we can simply remember is, if I have something called mailing address, the field label and API name will start with the mailing. So mailing street, mailing city, mailing postal code, mailing country, mailing state, something like that. Same thing with the other address. If it has starts with other, it will be like everything, you just simply street, city, state, zip code, country, add other into it. Okay. So now I would like to store this information to the mailing address. So go back to my flow and select street. If I type street, it comes two streets. So I would like to see mailing street. So mailing street is available in the address field. So address, the same like address is also compound field. It contains several attributes. So what is the value? Street to dam. Yeah, here we go. This is the street. Select that street. What else I have? Let me populate some state here. State address dot state. So if you see here, there is something called with the state options and value. So why it has is, so if you could remember while we discussing the dependent pick lists, so if I would like to have my state and country as a dependent pick list, then I can define what are the state options. So if I would like to have like a, allowing user to enter some state with Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, so user can enter Andhra Pradesh as AP or Telangana as TS. So it is like data typos. So some people will enter full name, some people will enter short name. For that, we can also define the options. Hey, I'll define my pick list option. Only choose this. Okay, that's what it helps us. But whenever you're mapping, you have to always select value. If you see here, state or province value, state or province options. So these options will be available for pick list. So if you see the country will also have country options. So we have to select value. Okay, that's it. Click on done. So to be short, I have just created two screen elements which are to gather some personal information from the user and address information, and whatever the user entered here, I'm creating a contact record. That's it. Click on save. Now I made the changes completely. Now I'm about to test this record. So click on activate. So if you're activating, older version will be deactivated. So go to the home page, refresh it. See here. So this is what my it's entering. So let me populate some salutation here. Populate flow. demo. I just want, sorry, flow here, demo here, and I'm choosing only date of birth here. Let's say 7 2000. Click on next. So I populated some flow demo here and date of birth here. Click on next. Now I'm populating address. So let's say first street, first city. Doesn't matter, right? So I just want to have some random number. So state, maybe I would say maybe some state. Let's say Florida. Okay. Okay. Now if I click on save, as per my flow, first first screen has address information, sorry, personal information that's been rendered. Second screen has address information that's been rendered. Then create contact. When I click on save here, there's nothing screen here, because if you look at here, only two screens will be rendered in the UI. If I click on next, this is an action, save action. This is a create contact record creation action. So it will, when I click on save, it will automatically create a record. So click on save. That's it, a contact record is created. We did not have any message, that's why it did not render. So go to the contact list view now. See, this is the contact record I created. So let me see what are the values it's populated here. So this is the name I populated as name, first name, last name, and birth date I populated, and mailing street, mailing state. Somehow I think I did not copy the mailing city here, because if you see, it has only street and state. I populated the city as well, and the same thing with salutation. Salutation is also I populated, because why it is not populated here is I did not map those fields. If you look at here, I did not map salutation, I did not map state, sorry, city. So that's why it did not copy over to the, even the user entered, it did not copy over to the database. So that's the power of the screen flow. Within the minutes or within the hours, we could able to build this. If I want to build the same in any of the custom UI which I were mentioned start of the call, it will take around 2 to 3 hours to complete this change, either in a what is this called, where is this, visual force or visual force. We couldn't able to do this, we couldn't able to achieve the same UI. Aura or LWC, if I would like to do the same in Aura or LWC, it will take around minimum of 2 hours. So if you do the same thing in the flow, maximum of 15 minutes to 30 minutes we could able to achieve it. So this is the one of the simplest flow that we seen, like just having two screens and everything. So if you have each and every conditions and everything, it will be looks like kind of a complexity. Then only we could able to understand, okay, this is what uh these many things we can, these many hours we can save when compared with the custom UI. Okay, so before we proceed for our next type, do you guys have any questions? Okay, always silence. Okay, all right. So that's what about screen flow. So just simply play around what are the different types of screen flows elements we have. Each and every this thing we have, we can simply select those. So you can also, before we close it off, I would like to have another screen. Okay, so I would like to just mention one particular element here, which is related to the screen flow. So let's say what are the contact record I created here, right? So this contact record is not linked with any account. So contact is something which we used to have for, let's say this contact will be the point of contact for one of my account, right? So I would like to have this contact to be created under one particular account record. I don't want to create this contact record as orphan record. So how would I like map this contact while creating under the account? Okay, so let me go back to my flow. This is one of the useful thing will help us. This is the also Salesforce recently introduced this feature. This is something called flow doesn't support previously to look for parent records. So with the latest release and last year, it is supporting it. Okay, then again save as, adding second screen, adding parent selection screen. Okay, now I want to create a screen here. So first I want to select under which account you are going to create a contact. So click on here. I want to add a screen on top of the first information. Click on here, click on screen. So if you see here something called, let me give a name to the screen, screen account selection. So then here label API name, and I want to populate, I want to choose account. So we know that the relationship is either lookup or master detail, right? So technically in general it used to call as lookup, doesn't matter about the relationship. So lookup is it's looking up for some parent record, that's what it does mean. So I have to choose the API name, something provide some API name to here, which is account selection. Then field API name. So what this means is it has to look for which field. Let's say if you go to the contact, if you see here this something called account name, if I click on this, this is looking for accounts, right? So this has been defined here. So we have to define the same thing in here as well. This is a Salesforce standard component, will take care of the selections of the accounts. So I have to do the same here. To achieve that, behind the scene only account ID will be stored, not the account name. If I select edge communications here, when I click on save, it has a lookup field. It will only store edge communications ID in this particular account record. Same like this will only store ID of the record. If I go to my contact screen, see here data field name is account ID, its database lookup to account. So this will only store ID of the account record, but while rendering it, it will show name field. That's the lookup behavior. To do the same, we have to populate this field API name, this account name field API, which is account ID, in here in the field API name section. Then only it will fetch the records of account. Okay, so label, maybe I would say account selection, object API name. So if you see here, source object, which is which object you are going to build. Screen doesn't know, right, whether you are building a contact or account. So we have to mention the object API name here, which is contact. Okay, so see now it's show the lookup. So click on done. Now I have a three screens, which is account selection, then another screen has personal information, another screen has address information, now another screen has contact creation. Now I have to make changes in this action to link this particular account to the contact. So add field, what is the API name for account? It's account ID. So map the respective screen, which is account selection. Has account selection is the lookup, which I drag and drop. Then it has record ID and record name. Record name will give you the name field. It's a lookup component which has ID and name. So I have to select ID. Click on done. That's it. Save it. Now activate this version. Okay. Next, go to the home page, refresh it. If you see here, my flow is updated now. It has first account selection. Previously, it has contact information directly. Now choose one account. See, it has the same behavior how we used to have here. So that's the power of the flow. Click on next. Now I have first name, let's say Tom, from flow. Okay, choose date of birth, something called 30 2022. Click on next. Street, Tom Street. State as, let's say, FL. Okay, then click on save. Now go to my contacts. See, this is the account record created, and if you look at here, it's been linked to the account already. See, this is the edge communication which we selected. So that's what we could able to achieve from the screen flows. So everything, whatever we could able to achieve from standard UI, we can build from the custom UI. Sorry, custom screen UI. Okay, that's what this screen flow can does. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes for if you have any questions, guys. Would you like to see anything else, or do you have any questions, or everyone clear?
I'm good, Ashwin.
Okay, at least one of you replied. Yeah, thank you, guys. All right, then we have a, we'll see another version, another type of it, which is most commonly used. Will not touch each and everything what we have in the next type, next category. So let me go back to my flow builder. So click create new flow. We couldn't able to make a screen flow and another action in the single flow. It has to be in a separate. Come on. Okay, so out of these are the four, I would say, invocable flows or auto triggered flows. So that's what I would say. So these four will relate to the data. Out of these, we'll talk about these only. This is the most powerful and most commonly used record triggered flow. We'll talk about this. And this platform event triggered flow and auto launched flow are two advanced topics. This will overwhelm to you guys, and we'll talk about this record trigger flow more, and the schedule trigger flow, what's been there in the schedule trigger, we'll just see it. Okay, we'll see how much we could able to achieve by today, and we'll see in the remaining in the next session. All right, click on record trigger flow. So either at least only one type can be created at one flow. So this is completely different. Record trigger flow doesn't have any UI. Only screen flow will have UI. Record trigger flow will happen behind the scene. Excuse me. which is completely in the background. No one could able to see what's been happening. Okay. All right. So record trigger flow, what I have to do is, previously we done a couple of things, right? Let's say um, creation of the task, or what, maybe I would say creation of the task with the same status attended demo. Okay, let's take the same example. So yeah, this has a different screens. Okay, which is, first is which object I have to perform, that has to be selected. So we're going to work on student object. Let's choose student object. Then when this has to be happen, I think this you guys are familiar, but on top of this, this has a one particular action is the record is deleted, where workflow or post builder cannot fire this. Only flow would able to would support record deletion also. Okay, so now we are, let's consider we are going to deal with a record created. Then entry conditions also the same. Let's have a one flow per one record trigger. So let's say you are going to work in student object for multiple record trigger flows, have everything in a single flow. That's why make sure do not mention if you are working in a concept called one flow per object. Okay, if you are working in one flow per object, do not mention any entry conditions. Otherwise you are working in different flow. Here I don't want to have one flow, I will be creating 10 flows. So mention require conditions here. So for now I'll be dealing with only one flow per object, which is one record triggered flow will have per object. All right, so this condition I'm not choosing anything for now. And this one optimize the flow for, these two are most important. I'll have what are these two can do. One is fast field updates. Another thing is, what is another thing called, action related records. Okay, what these two actually define, what are the uses of it. So let's say I'm creating a student record. Where is my student? I think I have to go to the sales rep. One second, let me go to the sales rep. All right, so I have a student record here. Click on new. So we have two different type of record types, right? Scholar and non-scholar. Let's consider, whenever I am creating a student record with non-scholar student, with a non-scholar student, I want to auto populate this status as maybe something called inquired. Okay, doesn't matter, but doesn't make sense, but for now let's consider I want to auto populate some value based on record type. I want to do only for the scholar, non-scholar, not for the scholar, because scholar has to populate the status. But for non-scholar, I want to auto populate. I can also define a validation rule here. Hey, you make it this required, but I don't want to make this required. Student doesn't populate. Let's select the some value from here. At the same time, sponsor. I want to make the sponsor as individual and status as inquired. Or what else it can make sense? Maybe I would say alumni. Okay, which makes sense. Some at some point, I want to auto publish status as alumni and sponsor as something. Behind the scene, what will happen is every action you are performing will be a cost, which is cost in the sense not in terms of amount, in terms of time, in terms of actions, in terms of uh, data they made the changes. Okay, so in simple short, whatever I have mentioned, status, I would like to have as status as alumni. And what is another thing? sponsor as individual. So what will happen when you click on save? Has anyone have an idea what will happen on click of save? Okay, maybe not a clear question. Okay, I'll make it clear. Whenever we click on simply a save, it performs a complete a long running operation, a long world tour. So we used to call as Salesforce world tour. Okay, as long as we are working in something called CRM, everything will be have some set of norms defined, some set of restrictions that we will be calling it as something called governor limits, and another thing called this governor limits we I used to say as norms. Salesforce defined norms. Hey, only these things can be performed in this particular transaction I mean, on click of save, Salesforce will perform world tour, the complete world tour. I'll send you the respective links after the call. What I'm talking about, this world tour, it will have different around 20 plus checks or actions. Okay, Salesforce will perform it. What are those? Okay, this is something called as governor limit will be a different. Let's ignore this for now, maybe it will give you a confusion. Let's remove it completely. This world tour we will be calling it as order of execution. Let's say the same example. In student object, I have workflow, process builder, flow, trigger, validation rule. Okay, let's consider these are the five. So far we talked about, we did not see the trigger, but trigger is also, as I said, it's the same. So these are the five we knew it, we talked about. So what should happen, when should happen what, and what should happen when, these things, if I consider these every five, this particular order which has to be executed first, and what has to be executed after, what next. Okay, everything will be defined. So it is not something Salesforce doesn't know, everything will be documented and everything will be defined. So if I categorize order of execution into simple three categories, first thing is when user populates information. Okay, and click on save, this complete has different actions. As I mentioned, this is the world tour. First starts with, let's say this is the save, record, save to the database, but not committed. Okay, on top of this, every before save checks, before save will be called. Before save in the sense, what are the before save will comes under, I would say validation rules. First field validation will be checked if any required fields are there, field validations, validation rules, and if there any before save. Before save in the sense, before save is something we used to have in the trigger and flows. So this will be executed. So these actions on top of save, after every these has to be checked properly, then only record will be saved to the database. Then after record save, It also performed some, again the tour is not completed yet. Salesforce will go to the after save. After save, like after save triggers, then workflow, then process builder. I would say after save, after trigger, before save as, before trigger, before flow. Okay, process builder, then after trigger, after flow. So this, then only all these actions are completed, then only record will be committed to the database. Committed in the sense, it is locked and no one could able to make the changes in that particular transaction. This complete world tour, we will be calling it as a single transaction, and this process is called as order of execution. Okay, here a record, whenever you click on save, with this before save or before trigger, before flow, I can make the changes even after it is saved to the database but not committed. I can also make the changes in the after trigger or process builder. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean whatever the information you populate in the UI are the only information it is going to the database. So there can be any process can manipulate your data. So while debugging this, we have to know this order of execution. I'll be sending the link for this order of execution. So this old tool is the order of execution. Now what this actually status and sponsor are, I would like, as I said, I would like to populate the status, alumni and sponsor individual, right? So why actually, if you categorize these two, okay, if I categorize this status, sponsor, value population, if I categorize these into two different, before and after, where we used to define these, before or after. Okay, I don't hear any as usual, but fine. So this, always remember, before should only do field populations. So before should only do field or value pre-population stuff. Okay, either it's a before trigger or before flow or before anything before. Only we have two, before trigger and before flow. These two should do only pre-populations or some kind of validations. Only trigger can validate but flow cannot validate. Okay, so this flow can only do before field value, field or value pre-population. After can do anything, you can do anything in the after. Why? Because if I do this thing in the after, okay, let's consider the status, alumni and sponsor individual. If I do this in the after, which is here, what will happen is a record is saved to the database. Okay, then from after trigger, or let's consider after flow, I'm updating the same record with alumni and individual, which is when a user clicks on save, I don't have these two value. And in the after flow, again I'm populating these two value and again saving it, because which is already committed to the database. Sorry, which is already saved to the database. If you want to change value, you have to do again some other insert or update or delete. So in after flow, you will again create record, sorry, update record. What will happen is after flow, whenever you make some changes in the same record in the after flow, again world tour will start, which is it will be stopped from here and it will start with the world tour, which is field validation rule, before save, before trigger, before flow, save, and after trigger. So it costs, so it costs one DML extra. So whenever user clicks on save, that's the one DML happening already. When you again update the same record, that's again you're doing another DML. That's cost effective. So whatever that's costly, whatever we have to do some pre-population, has to be cost effective manner, that has to be done in the before. Okay, so this one DML, why I'm saying it is costly, because this DML will be counted against governor limits. I told you the governor limits, right? So I'll send the list of governor limits as well, whatever we have in the Salesforce. This governor limits will be every transaction, this complete world tour has to be in this governor limit. If you reach out of this governor limit, Salesforce will throw an exception and transaction will be aborted. Okay, so that's why whenever you're doing something like this, status, sponsor, value pre-population or validations has to be in the before. So because it's not saved to the database yet, so you're just binding some value and assigning some value to that, and so that this whenever it's saving, it will be saved automatically. You don't need to again do some DML extra. That's what this governor limits will be counted. So each and every transaction has its own governor limits. So I'll be sending the order of execution, how order of execution looks like, governor limits, and yeah, that's what I'll be sending for after this call. Before we close for the day, any questions, guys? We'll continue this record trigger flow in the next session, and we'll close it off. Any questions from anyone?
No, Ashwin. Good.
All right. So let's do some hands-on on it. So record trigger flow and flows are most important topic, guys. So do some hands-on, and I'll be sending the what is this called, assignments within another 1 hour after the session. All right. Until unless you don't have anything, guys, that's all for the day. We'll meet you on Wednesday. Thank you, guys. Have a good day and good weekend.
Thank you.